Okay, welcome to the deep dive. You're here because, well, let's be honest, we've all tried making changes, right? Big ones, small ones.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it just feels like you hit a wall. You get all motivated, start strong, and then,
Yeah.
well, life happens.
Yeah, the motivation just sort of fades.
Exactly. And you're back where you started. What if the way we're thinking about change is just fundamentally off?
That's precisely the question, isn't it? That's really at the heart of what we're digging into today. We're doing a deep dive into the world of atomic habits,
Right.
pulling insights from an article that, really captures the essence of James Clear's book. It's hugely popular for a reason.
Right. And this article is kind of our way in, our shortcut maybe, to understanding why these tiny, almost ridiculously small actions, when you do them consistently, might actually be the secret sauce.
The real key.
Yeah. So our mission here is to unpack the core ideas from this source, go beyond the buzzwords, and figure out how these little building blocks of behavior can stack up, how they can compound into, well, pretty remarkable results for you.
Because the core idea, and the source lays this out really clearly, it isn't about needing some huge dramatic overhaul.
Right. Not some massive burst of willpower you hope just sticks around.
Exactly. Sustainable success.
Mm.
It's not really about those giant leaps. It's about small, consistent improvements, things that stack up day after day.
Okay.
It's about realizing that our behaviors, those are the fundamental units building our lives.
Which brings us to that term itself, atomic. Sounds a bit scientific, maybe?
Yeah.
But the source uses it in a really specific, kind of clever way.
It does, yeah. Think atomic-like.
Yeah.
Two things, yes. Incredibly tiny, minute.
Like almost invisible sometimes.
Right, but also like an actual atom, The fundamental building block of matter. These are the tiniest parts of a habit.
Okay.
And just like atoms combine to build, well, everything around us, these tiny behaviors, these atomic habits, they add up over time and they can create really quite radical improvements.
In what areas?
Oh, across the board. Health, productivity, personal growth.
Yeah.
You name it.
It's like that example, I think it was in the source, about just reading a few pages a day. Seems like nothing.
It totally does. Reading a few pages takes, 5 minutes? Almost zero effort.
Right.
But the source points out, if you commit to that tiny action every single day over years, you end up reading a whole library's worth of books.
Wow. That's the cumulative power.
That's it exactly. The essence is seeing that our habits are these building blocks. They shape our days, how we react, our whole mindset, really. So by consciously developing these positive atomic habits, even when they feel insignificant repeating them, you start to fundamentally reshape your routines and, eventually your life.
So it's not just the habit, it's the process of forming it. The source mentioned Clear has a framework.
Absolutely. And the framework is really about understanding the mechanics, how a habit actually gets built and sticks.
Okay.
It boils down to a cycle.
Yep.
Cues, cravings, responses, and rewards. And the real power comes from making small, manageable tweaks within that cycle.
Not trying to blow the whole thing up at once.
Exactly. No massive disruptions needed.
Okay, let's unpack that. Because understanding how habits stick, or why they sometimes don't, that feels critical. What's the science tell us about this habit loop?
Well, the science really comes down to how our brains learn and automate things. It's about efficiency.
Right.
So the loop has these 4 stages. First, you've got the cue. That's the trigger. Tells your brain a reward might be nearby.
Could be anything. Like a time of day.
Could be external, time of day, a place, seeing something specific, or internal, a feeling like boredom, stress.
Ah, okay. Like feeling bored cues you to check your phone.
Perfect example. That cue then leads to stage 2, the craving. This is the motivator, the desire for the outcome, the pleasure you associate with the reward.
You're not craving scrolling, maybe, but the relief from boredom it gives.
Precisely. You're craving the change in state. That craving drives stage 3. The response, that's the habit itself, picking up the phone, scrolling.
And that response leads to the final piece.
The reward, stage 4. The satisfying outcome that fulfills the craving. And this is crucial. It teaches your brain, hey, remember this loop, it worked. Do it again next time you get that cue.
It reinforces the whole cycle.
Exactly. Seals the deal.
What's really fascinating, the source mentions this, is how much of this just sinks below the surface, becomes subconscious.
Oh, completely. Research from psychologist Wendy Wood mentioned in the article,
Hmm.
it shows habits emerge not because we consciously decide every single time.
Well, you don't think I shall now check my phone?
No, it happens because we repeat behaviors in the same context over and over.
Okay.
The more you run through that cue craving response reward loop, the stronger the connection gets in your brain. The neural pathways literally strengthen.
Like carving a path.
Yeah, like building a super highway between the cue and the response. It becomes automatic. And that's why tiny, consistent changes, like, say, just putting your running shoes on right when you get home, even if you only walk for 5 minutes,
That's more sustainable.
so much more sustainable. You're building that automatic pathway for something easy, manageable. You're not trying to force your brain down some non-existent dirt track towards, a full hour at the gym right away.
That makes total sense. You're kind of hacking your brain's own automation system.
You got it. And just understanding this loop gives you power. You can start seeing your own cues, your rewards, the hidden drivers,
Hmm.
and then you can strategically redesign the loop to build habits you actually want instead of just being run by the old ones.
Okay, this is where, for me, it got really interesting.
Hmm.
This idea of the power of just 1% improvement. 1%, it sounds like.
Mhm.
Nothing.
It feels totally counterintuitive, doesn't it? How can
Yeah.
1% possibly matter?
Yeah.
But the source makes such a compelling case for it. This principle of marginal gains, famously used by the British cycling team to, well, completely transform their results.
Right, I've heard about that. What do they actually do, though, with 1%?
They got, frankly, obsessed with tiny improvements absolutely everywhere, not just the obvious things like training harder,
Like what then?
things like optimizing the bike seat comfort by just 1%, finding a massage gel that helped recovery just slightly faster, painting the inside of the team truck white so they could spot tiny bits of dust easier.
Get it out. Why?
Less dust meant less chance of it getting into the bike mechanics, causing tiny issues. It was that level of detail.
Wow. That's less
It
than
is. And the source points out, okay, a cyclist improves their speed by 1%, maybe shaves only minutes or less off a single race. Seems small.
Mm-hmm.
But compound that over a whole season, over years of races, that tiny edge builds into a massive competitive advantage, often unbeatable.
By looking at everything.
Everything, analyzing all the metrics, making tiny tweaks, they built champions through accumulating these small gains.
And the article applies this much more broadly than just sports, right?
Oh, absolutely. Think about business. A company makes a 1% efficiency gain in, say, procurement, how they buy stuff, initially. Maybe just a fractional cost reduction. Tiny.
Mm.
But over time, that adds up. It boosts profit margins, overall productivity. It can even ripple out to make customers happier because things just run smoother.
So continuous improvement isn't just for elite athletes.
Not at all. It's a universal principle. And personally, it's exactly what the source says, adding 1 extra serving of vegetables. Or just 5 more minutes of exercise each day.
Things that don't feel like a huge shock to the system.
Exactly. They feel doable, manageable. But you do them consistently over weeks, months, and suddenly you've made real significant lifestyle changes. Your well-being improves noticeably.
So the power of 1% is really about accessibility.
Yes, and sustainability. It drives long-term growth through these steady, small advancements. It's about making progress, not holding out for some mythical perfect overhaul.
Okay, so if even these tiny 1% changes matter, and we've got this habit loop framework,
Yeah.
cues, cravings, responses, rewards,
Mm-hmm.
but there are so many habits we could work on, where do you even start? The source brings up something called keystone habits.
Ah, yes. This is such a critical idea. Think of a keystone in an archway.
The wedge-shaped one at the very top.
That's the one. Pull it out. The whole arch collapses. But make it strong, and the whole structure is more stable, more robust. Keystone habits are like that.
How so?
They're foundational practices. When you adopt one, it tends to automatically trigger positive changes in other areas of your life, too. It creates this positive ripple effect.
Okay, give me an example. What did the source say?
Exercise is the classic one the source uses. Start exercising regularly. Okay, yes, your physical fitness improves, obvious,
Right.
but often it doesn't stop there. You might start eating healthier because, hey, you don't want to undo your workout effort.
Makes sense.
It often boosts your mood significantly, which changes how you interact with people, how resilient you feel.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
It can increase your energy levels, your focus, your productivity through the day, affecting your work, your hobbies. It's one habit that cascades positively into many others.
Okay, that's powerful. So how does someone listening right now figure out what their potential keystone habits might be? Any tips from the source?
Yeah, the Articles suggest a couple of practical things. One is try journaling your daily routines for maybe a week.
Just observing.
Just observing, no judgment. Pay attention to when you feel most successful or energetic or productive. Look for patterns.
Like, oh, when I did X in the morning, the rest of the day went better.
Exactly. Those could be clues. Another idea is to experiment with small changes. If your default morning is, I don't know, coffee and checking email,
Guilty.
heck, yeah. Try swapping just the first 15 minutes for something else, maybe some deep breathing, maybe writing down one quick thing you're grateful for, something small.
Can see what happens.
And track how that little shift influences the rest of your day, your mood, your energy, your choices.
And environment plays a role here, too, in finding or supporting these.
Absolutely. Look at your environment, physical and social. Are there certain people you're around where positive habits just seem easier? Or the flip side? Are there negative habits that always seem to pop up in a certain place or with certain people? Identifying and focusing on these keystone habits lets you leverage their power. You improve multiple areas at once without feeling like you're juggling 10 different goals.
Which leads us perfectly into the next piece, from the source, which is that environment itself. It's not just what you do, but where you do it. It seems to matter way more than we might think.
Oh, it's profoundly influential. Our surroundings, physical and social, they're constantly sending us cues, shaping our behavior, often completely under the radar.
Unconsciously.
Right? The source really stresses that optimizing your environment isn't just, a nice bonus. It's a strategic necessity for habit change.
So how do we optimize? What about the physical space?
The core idea is simple but powerful. Make the good habits easy, make the bad habits hard.
Reduce the friction for good stuff, increase it for bad stuff.
Exactly. You want to eat healthier. Don't rely on sheer willpower when there's a box of cookies staring you down from the kitchen counter.
Yeah. Bad idea.
Make the unhealthy stuff less visible, harder to get to. Even better, get rid of it. And put the healthy options, the fruit bowl, the pre-cut veggies, right out in the open. Easy grab.
Make the good habit the path of least resistance.
That's the goal. Design your space so the default choice, the easiest choice, is the one you want to make.
Okay. Makes sense for physical space. What about the social environment?
Try to surround yourself as much as you realistically can with people who already embody the habits or traits you're aiming for.
Like finds like?
Sort of. If you want to read more, maybe join a book club or just spend more time with friends who are readers, want to be more active, find workout buddies.
Why does that help so much?
Social influence is huge. It provides cues, you see them doing it. It provides accountability. It normalizes the behavior, makes it seem desirable. It really helps maintain commitment when your own motivation dips.
And establishing routines within that environment, like specific times and places.
Yes, that builds really strong cue response links. Have your running shoes right by the door. That's a visual cue for a run.
Gotcha.
Set up a specific comfy chair just for reading. When you sit there, your brain gets the signal, it's reading time. Strategically shaping your environment is a massive lever. It boosts your ability to form and keep positive habits, actively supporting your goals.
Now, this next idea from the source.
Yeah.
Honestly, I found this perhaps the most profound. The deep link between your identity and changing your habits. It's not just about what you do.
No, it's about who you become.
Right. Explain that.
This is absolutely fundamental for change that actually lasts. How you see yourself, your self-image, that's an incredibly powerful driver of your behavior. Real sustainable habit shifts often happen when you move beyond just chasing an outcome like, I want to lose 10 pounds or I want to write a book, and instead focus on shifting your underlying belief about who you are. The focus moves from the outcome to the identity.
So instead of, I want to exercise more, it's more like thinking, I am an active person.
Exactly that. Or the source suggests, want to write that book. Focus on being a writer. What do writers do?
They write.
They write. Consistently. Want to eat healthy. Identify as someone who values and prioritizes their health.
How does framing it that way help?
It creates a narrative. It aligns your daily actions with who you aspire to be or who you are becoming. It makes the choices feel less like chores and more like expressions of who you are.
So it feels more authentic.
Yes. And that dramatically boosts motivation and resilience, especially when things inevitably get challenging.
But shifting your identity, that feels like a really big ask.
Yeah.
How do you actually do that? What does the source suggest?
It's a process, for sure. The source mentions a few approaches. Visualization techniques can help really picturing yourself embodying that identity.
Hmm.
Positive affirmations, if done consistently and genuinely, can start to rewire that internal self-talk.
Mm-hmm.
Surrounding yourself with people who already are that way, tying back to the social environment piece, reinforces it.
Right, makes it feel more real.
And crucially, celebrating the small wins, even tiny ones. Each
Yeah.
time you complete a habit, no matter how small, it's like casting a vote for that new identity.
Like evidence. See? I am doing this.
Exactly. It's proof. So, crafting this narrative, focusing on becoming the type of person who naturally does these things, that provides a deep well of motivation. It lays the most solid foundation for change that actually sticks.
Okay, but let's get real for a second. This whole journey,
Hmm.
it's not always going to be smooth sailing, is it? Life throws curveballs.
Yeah.
What does the source say about handling challenges, those inevitable setbacks?
Yeah, it definitely acknowledges that obstacles are just part of the deal. Lack of motivation hits everyone. Inconsistency creeps in. Unexpected stuff happens that just derails your routine.
For sure.
And the source specifically calls out that really damaging all or nothing mindset.
Oh, yeah, where you miss one workout or eat one piece of cake and think, well, blew it. Might as well give up completely.
Exactly that downward spiral. The source strongly advises against it. It urges a more forgiving, more resilient approach.
How so?
Setbacks are normal. They are not failures, they're data points. The emphasis has to be on progress, not some impossible standard of perfection.
So missing one day doesn't wipe out the whole week before.
Absolutely not. The goal isn't never slipping up, it's getting back on track quickly. Don't use one misstep as an excuse to ditch the whole effort. Just resume tomorrow or even later the same day.
What about setting goals that are just way too big, too ambitious right out of the gate?
That's another really common hurdle. Leads straight to frustration and burnout. If you're starting from zero exercise and your goal is run a marathon next month,
Yeah, probably not going to happen.
right, you're setting yourself up for failure. And this is where the core idea of atomic habits is so vital. Implement small, incremental changes.
The 1% stuff again.
Exactly. Things you can easily weave into your daily life. They feel much less overwhelming than trying to make massive overnight shifts.
Does the source offer practical ways to navigate these hurdles when they pop up?
It does. Building a support system is key. Friends, family, maybe colleagues with similar goals. They provide accountability, but also crucial encouragement when you feel like quitting.
Someone to cheer you on or call you out.
Both. And tracking your progress is also incredibly practical and powerful.
We'll get more into that.
Yeah.
But how does tracking help with setbacks specifically?
Seeing your progress visually on a calendar, in a journal, an app, it reinforces your commitment.
Yeah.
When you hit a rough patch, looking back at that chain of check marks, that record of effort.
Reminds you you have been making progress.
Exactly. It reminds you of how far you've come, which can be incredibly motivating during a dip. So yeah, overcoming obstacles really requires resilience, flexibility, and always bringing your focus back to the process, the progress, not the temporary stumble.
And that leads us perfectly into really digging into that power of tracking progress. And just as importantly, celebrating the wins along the way.
Yeah.
How does that fit into the whole picture?
Tracking is so vital because it makes the invisible visible. It gives you a concrete visual record of your efforts.
Right.
When you physically check off a habit on a tracker or log it in an app, you get that little hit of immediate feedback. I did it.
Satisfying.
Very. It helps you monitor how you're doing, spot patterns, maybe triggers you hadn't noticed, and it keeps you accountable, even if just to yourself. And seeing those streaks build,
You don't want to break the chain.
nobody wants to break the chain. That visual momentum is incredibly motivating.
It's like tangible proof that these tiny efforts are adding up.
That's exactly it. And if you are tracking and you see things are dipping or maybe a certain approach isn't yielding results,
You have data.
you have data to make timely adjustments, to course correct. It's not just guesswork. And then celebrating the wins, this is pure positive reinforcement.
How so?
Every time you successfully complete that habit loop, even a tiny one, and you pause to acknowledge it, maybe give yourself a mental high five.
Or maybe something more tangible.
Could be.
Yeah.
But even just acknowledging it tells your brain, hey, that was good, let's do that again. It boosts motivation, reinforces the actual behavior, and strengthens that neural pathway we talked about.
So it's not just like a cold, sterile checklist. It's building a positive feeling around the habit.
Exactly. It connects emotion to it. It enhances your brain's reward system, making the habit more attractive the next time that cue pops up.
What kind of celebrations does the source suggest? Big parties.
Eh, Probably not necessary. Simple gestures work great. Maybe enjoying a favorite healthy snack after a workout. Allowing yourself 5 minutes of guilt-free relaxation after finishing a focused work block. Or just sharing your progress with a supportive friend.
Small rewards for small habits.
Right. Tracking and celebrating, they work together to create this powerful, positive feedback loop. They build that emotional connection. They increase your belief in your own ability to change your self-efficacy.
Mhm.
They strengthen your commitment, and they really foster a productive growth mindset. The article is pretty clear. People who consistently track their progress and celebrate their wins, they're significantly more likely to build habits that actually last.
So, pulling all these threads together now, the core message, it feels undeniably powerful. It really is about these small changes done consistently, leading to remarkable, maybe even surprising transformations over time.
Yes. It completely reframes success. It's not some big bang event. It's the product of your daily habits. It becomes a journey that prioritizes steady, sustainable growth, built one tiny atomic habit at a time.
Yeah.
And the source constantly reminds us, you need patience. You need persistence. The results might not look dramatic from one day to the next.
The 1% doesn't feel huge day to day.
Right. But the cumulative effect, compounded over months and years, that's where the magic happens. It's profound.
And really internalizing that setbacks aren't failures. They're just information, feedback.
Precisely. Opportunities to learn, adjust, maybe try a different approach, and never, ever underestimate the power of shaping your environment.
Right, the cues and friction.
Yeah, those small tweaks to your surroundings can dramatically amplify the impact of your efforts by making the good habits easier and the bad ones harder. Seeing that progress add up on your tracker, recognizing and genuinely celebrating those small victories.
Keep you going.
It constantly reinforces your commitment. It strengthens your belief that, yes, significant success is achievable this way through these small, steady steps.
The source wraps it up nicely, saying embracing atomic habits isn't just about hitting some destination, some final goal. It's about actually savoring the value of the process itself,
Mm-hmm.
enjoying the journey of building yourself, really, one tiny action at a time.
Yeah, it shifts the focus, doesn't it, from some stressful, distant destination to the empowering act of consistently creating the person you want to be day by day.
That really does feel like a genuinely different and maybe much more effective way to approach change. Thank you so much for walking us through this deep dive into atomic habits based on this great article.
Oh, my pleasure. It's a framework that I think really offers a practical path forward, especially when big change feels just too overwhelming.
So here's something to think about. If becoming the kind of person who effortlessly embodies the habits you want is the ultimate goal, what's one tiny action, maybe something almost insignificant, that you could take today? Not just to reach a goal, but to take one small, deliberate step into becoming that future self. Something to consider until our next deep dive.